Hello and welcome. Today I want to share with you my favorite build in Elden Ring. I have been playing, as you can see, Elden Ring very consistently, I would say, to say the least. So I have plenty of builds at very different levels. I finished the game with my level 40 plus 4 character, and in the end I have basically only a few characters that I still play. The two characters being the two first ones. Here, as you can see, there's one at 150 and one at 326. This video will be about those two builds because the rest is essentially just some sort of variation on the same. Well, you resort to the same strings, really. So the first one at 150 is a melee focused build that is not using any spells, and the second one is essentially using exclusively spells, pretty much. So to start with, I propose we start with Corona 10x, which is my melee character. This melee character is actually a dexterity build. I have been playing this character in many different flavors, and in the end, with the DLC, it really all came together with a perfect arsenal, I reckon. The 150 allows you to go to 80 dexterity. Note that I'm using Millicent's prosthesis. Actually, the whole point of the build is actually chained attacks. So you reach some absolutely ridiculous damage output with this approach. So you just stack those two talismans on top of the thorny cracked tier for bosses, and you basically double your ARR very rapidly in a few hits. Hey! So, and the AR is already pretty damn phenomenal. At 150, what I like with 150 is that I think it's the meta in Elden Ring. I disagree with the people who think that 125 should be the same as before and we should stick to 125. It's nonsense. I mean, Elden Ring is a very different game. And at 150, you basically have a very finished, optimal one stat build that is completely optimized, and you don't really have any massive sacrifices to do to make like a very functional build like this. You can't really do a very full-fledged hybrid without taking shortcuts and making sacrifices still. So I think that's the meta. Anyway, at 150, the truth is that you can specialize yourself in such a way that you basically reach the pinnacle of damage output at 150. I have done a caster build that I leveled up to 326, as I mentioned earlier, but at 150 I was actually doing more damage. I was doing only sorceries, and I was using the Moonlight Greatsword, and I was dishing out some insane damage with the Karian Regal Scepter, and it was insane. Now I'm playing it differently. I will talk to you about that in a moment. But for the time being, the 150 here has a ridiculous damage output. I am relying on 4 main weapons here. The backhand blade is a no-brainer. The backhand blade is insane on a dexterity build. Skills S. Look at this. I am adding 366 damage to my base 220 damage. So yeah, it's insane. The other one is my Night Skin greatsword. You can see that I have a weird choice. Most people will tell that the poison flower blooms twice is probably not the best choice on a build, but like this. But I disagree, and I will explain to you why in a second. The cold godskin peeler is why cold? Because it retains a very good dexterity scaling for physical, so you still have over 400 AR with that, and you have an insane frost built up with a running attack that hits 3 times. And the thing that made this build is the Claws of Night. That is just an abomination, essentially. Okay, so I am relying on the Rakshas's armor because it looks fucking cool. It's true that it adds 4% to your AR, but quite frankly, I mean, it's cool, but it's not that big of a deal. But I think it looks fucking fantastic on a female model. And in terms of talismans, I am using, as I mentioned, the chained attack talismans. I'm using the Shard of Alexander because it's Elden Ring, and Elden Ring is essentially pressing L2 at the right time. Yes, especially in PvP. And I have the Earth Tree's Favor +2 talisman because that allows me to fit all this stuff in there with, you know, the allocated stats that you see on the right-hand side of the screen. So 60 Vigor, because, well, yeah, that's a no-brainer. 31 Endurance allows me to fit all my fashion and all my gear in there. 20 Strength comes from the fact that I like to be able to use the hand ballista, so the ballista use 30 strength, so you two-hand it and you can use it. But quite frankly, it's not necessary at all to reach 20 in strength. You can lower that if you want. The lowest you will want to go is probably 16, which turns out to be the minimum because I am a vagabond, so I think that's the strength you start with. No, it's 14. I don't remember. Anyway, something like that. Yeah, it's 14 that you start with as a vagabond. You start with a vagabond because Vagabond is the most optimal stat distribution if you don't give a fuck about any of Intelligence, Faith, and Arcane, especially if you don't give a fuck about Arcane, which is the case here. You can build, as you will see, insane status without using Arcane at all. So that's the stats. Now, why do I use the backhand blade and what for? Okay, the backhand blade, as you can you know probably already, is a paired weapon, meaning that if you two-hand it, you have 2 weapons. What is really good about the backhand blade is the moveset. The moveset, the running R1, is unique in that you can basically chain them and you don't lose momentum. You still run as fast as any running opponent, so it's an absolute bonkers chase down tool for PvP. It's also absolutely insane when you actually come inside a group of mob because you pass through hitting and you can basically just continue or just do whatever you want, really. And whatever you want being, for example, my favorite combo when I'm running after a player mostly is you run behind, You backstep, and you chain blind spot. Blind spot is broken, has been broken since the days of the Corvian knife in Dark Souls 3, except it was not that broken in Dark Souls 3 because there was no invulnerability frame in the quick step initial part of the move. Now it does, so yeah, it's pretty good. It consumes a humongous amount of stamina though, so you cannot just, you know, happily chain them. I mean, you can do 3 or 4 in a row. In PvP, it's usually all it takes with lags to annihilate anybody anyway, but yeah, whatever. We're talking mostly about PvE here. The other excellent thing about it is the crouch attack. The crouch attack is insane. It's the dagger attack, comes pretty much as fast. It used to come exactly as fast. Now they patched it. It's slightly slower, but it's still fucking insane. The other thing is just the plain R2. The charged R2 is bonkers. It does insane stance damage as well. The running R2 hits 4 times. And that is why we will rely on this weapon to build status. It's because of this. The fact that it's actually hitting 4 times not only procs your beautiful little talismans here, but also allows you to proc any status that you have on your blade. Why did you not infuse your blades with some status then, you moron, would you say? Well, because you don't need to. That's the beauty of it. If you infuse your backhand blades with poison, say, you end up with 96 poison built up, if I'm not mistaken, with my stats. Now, if I actually just do this, I find myself with absolutely no damage loss and 80 poison built up on my blades. Do the math. I think we can all agree that it's pretty interesting to retain an absolutely insane AR like the one I have here and be able to just put any freaking status on it ad libitum. Why is it possible? Well, thanks to the new addition of the string bell, whatever the name is, in the DLC, where you can actually now buy any of the amount of the strings and the resins that you want, making drawstring poison grease something that is no longer a luxury. You can just spam them, you don't give a fuck. It's okay. You can make them ad libitum. You can buy them ad libitum. So this, poof, I have 101 poison bloom still. I have infinity of root resins, infinity of strings. Oh yeah, no worries, I can do that. It's not a problem at all. So this allows me to inflict poison pretty efficiently. Now, it's not the only source of poison. Of course, I like to use poison dart. There are different ways of inflicting poison. Why would you inflict poison? Well, it's for the poison flower blooms twice, Achevoir, obviously. So. With that out of the way, I come back to that in a moment. There are other ways to actually inflict poison. One that is really good is the poison stone clump. The poison stone clump allows you at point blank to actually build up status faster than the poison bone dart. But you get stuck in an animation for a fairly long time. It's a bit like tossing. It's actually a bit longer than tossing a pot. So it can be a long time against a boss, for example. This is almost instantaneous. Doesn't go very far, but it goes far enough. So I am using that to basically maintain my poison built up until it's actually triggered. Now, once it's triggered, you have the choice of either exploding the poison with the poison flower blooms twice, or just let it rip for a while, and you can change to a different status. And that's the beauty of this build, is that I have two other statuses that I can use. The second status being frost. Well, nobody can insist enough on how good frost is in PvE especially, but PvP as well, to be perfectly honest. It's fucking awesome. Now, how do you build efficiently Frost? Frost does not depend on any stat. I mean, the damage of Frost of cold infused weapons scales partially on magic, except there are weapons that are scaling off intelligence for the magic part more or less well. Usually, the rule of thumb is that your weapon retains a form of scaling that is innate to this weapon. So, for example, the godskin peeler, being predominantly a dexterity weapon, will retain a very good dexterity scaling. Just like, for example, I don't know, the milady would, for example, or the flamberge would. Whereas if you put the Zweihander in cold, for example, it will retain a CC scaling because it's predominantly a quality weapon, and so on and so forth. So when on a dexterity build, the cold infusion on the godskin peeler is good because you retain a very high physical damage from the B scaling in dexterity, and you don't really care about the fact that, yes, you have a little bit of magic damage that is lost in a D-scaling in intelligence that is essentially non-existent. You don't care, because guess what? Look at this beautiful 127 Frost built-up status. 127 is about a third of what you need to proc status on pretty much any player. And you know what? When you do a running attack with the peeler, you hit 3 times. No less than 3. And this is a beautiful vortex attack. It actually has a very lasting hitbox, and it does an insane amount of stagger in PvE, allowing you to enter charging some sort of big knight without any problem. You will stagger the fucker with this attack. Something that you can't say with, for example, the milady. If you run into anything with the milady, well, the guy will just take the hit, smile, and smash your face. So, not so good. This allows you to safely enter the fight, and you stagger. Once you have done that, you can chain with this, because you know it will be a guaranteed stagger with the frost proccing on anything, even freaking Malenia. If you're not sure, that's where the spinning slash comes into play, because it's an Ash of War that comes out pretty quickly, especially on the twin blades. Comes really quickly on the twin blades, and has some hyper armor. Complements the moveset that is fairly straight, like you hit not really around you with the peeler, unlike the other twin blades, like for example the normal, the twinned, or all the normal twin blades movesets. You have a bit more of an horizontal moveset. Here you don't. So this complements the lack of circularity in the movement, comes out really quickly with some decent hyper armor, and does a very good stagger. You have to have well over 133 poise, and you stagger pretty much anything in PvP. Again, it's basically my oh shit stagger, get out of jail free card. Now you can also continue with the follow-up. The follow-up is dangerous because very often the target, if it has like a hyper armor trigger, usually triggers the hyper armor in the middle of the second part of the move, and you trade and you lose. So I use mostly the first one and then stop there. It depends. So that's it. We have poisoned our target. It's frozen. You can at this point either detonate. So notice that this is a great movement Ash of War, that if you want to get a bit further with that, you actually start turning away from your target. You gain about half a roll distance in the cover, but yeah, whatever. It's pretty negligible. So you can detonate your poison for a massive chunk of damage that is so juicy when it triggers, is just very satisfying. It's also very good to enter a fight because there is an area of effect around you that staggers pretty much anything, does 20 stance damage if the little stinger actually connects as well. And triggers 150 rot. So the funny thing is that you take away the poison, but usually you replace it by rot, which you can detonate again. So yeah, it's pretty good. For 14 FP, it's a beautiful skill to use. It's also very good because it has some very decent hyper armor. So yeah, I love it. And that's why I'm using it on this build. And that's why I'm basically just using the drawstring poison grease mostly on this build instead of using something that does 120 additional fire damage, like for example the mesmer grease, because the poison flower blooms twice is a blast to use. Okay, so we have a very good set of weapons to apply the poison. Stagger as well. This staggers pretty much anything as well. I use only attacks that stagger because I'm so tired of getting my ass handed out to me by some moron that has lots of hyper armor, be it in PvE or PvP, doesn't matter. It's really annoying. Now, that brings me to these babies. These babies lack only one thing, and that's staggering power. It doesn't stagger for shit because it's just basic R1 claws. Anybody and their mum can actually poise through these hits. Normally the claws have a good way to bypass that. I don't have other claws here, but the raptor claws, for example, have a fantastic R2 that allow you to suddenly stagger your opponent to make up for the lack of stagger of the R1. The R1 is really good at stacking status really quickly, but it's not staggering, and normally you can resort on an R2, but hey, the R2 here is this throwy stuff. I am not a big fan of it. It is circumstantially good against players mostly. It's a PvP thing mostly. You can make good use of it in PvE as well as finishes of mobs and stuff, but on bosses you do not want to use that. It's very nice on horseback though, because you don't have to step off your horse. You can still shoot at stuff around you. It's nice. But what is absolutely insane about this weapon is the fact that it has two damage types inbuilt in it that both scale off the one stat that is dexterity. It scales B in dex both for the physical and the magic aspect of it. So it's completely nuts. The amount of damage that you do with this weapon is actually on par with a normal pair of keen claws that would have been buffed with, I don't know, a magic weapon with about 40 or 50 intelligence. So yeah, it's pretty good. It has less blood buildup than normal claws. Claws usually have 60. This one doesn't. It's just to balance out the fact that it has scattershot. Okay, this thing is so broken. I mean, you probably have heard of it already. So look at this. The arc of shot, the distance it covers. It's on a humanoid sized target. It does about 500 because only two little knives hit, but on large targets many more knives can hit, so the damage scales proportionally to the number of knives. The bleed built up does too, so you end up having a very, very interesting amount of blood built up with this thing. So also has an insane crowd control ability and covers a huge amount of a huge arc in front of you. So it's a very, very nice weapon to have. To complement an otherwise pretty much exclusively melee-oriented build, right? So what do you use otherwise? You use those babies here. I love the gravity stone fan in order to control a cone in front of me and stagger stuff that is incoming. And giving me choices. If they pass through, I use those babies. The roped lightning pots are actually a good source of lightning. I don't like infusing my weapons with lightning because I don't like the sound of it on weapons. But that's just me, I guess. Lightning is very good otherwise, but I prefer good old physical sounds. The new addition of the perfumed oil of Rana for dexterity build. Oh yeah, baby. I mean, what's not to love? It's basically Flame of the Red Mains, but it does not stagger nearly as much, obviously, otherwise it would be so cracked. But it's still pretty good. It's very good to exploit the rinsing and reapplying of frost built up on a target, on a boss. Talking about frost, hey, that's a very good way of applying it. That's the 300 freezing pot ticket. It's just good. That's just good. Like, I don't understand why I would bother with any other ritual pot in my arsenal. This is great. Now, hello! Hello, hefty pots from the DLC. Dexterity, lightning, yeah, you got it covered. Hefty lightning pot, massive area of effect, huge stagger, sends players rolling. Fucking awesome. Hefty rod pot. Oh, You can farm those babies just on the other side of this door here. You just walk for 150 meters in game, and boom, you have two things that allow you to create one of those hefty rod pots. The hefty rod pots are just good, especially when you use that. So, yeah. The uplifting aromatic, I basically never really use except for very tough fights when I want to help friends or whatever, because that's just too precious to fuck around with. Because the crafting of those fuckers just costing arterial leaf, and Jesus, I hate farming this crap. I just can't bring myself to do that. So the rest is very easy to farm, but the arterial leaf, you have to go to kill the snow trolls. You have to use your horse, and it's a long, boring farm. I don't like that. Okay, I think that's it for the time being with this build. Let's see what we can do in practice. Let's try it on a big bloke like this guy here. I am in new game, so there's no extra difficulty, so obviously I will probably destroy the poor fucks, but okay. Let's see if I can apply status without killing him. Yes, I have him. Okay. Bye. So that's the sort of chain combo routine that I do a lot, but you don't have to, obviously. This is just for fun. If I want to fuck him up with the current situation, you don't bother. You just go poof. I mean, obviously, it's that easy because I am at schedule 3, 17, 18, I think, or something like that. So of course I do tremendous amount of damage. Yeah, 17. Now let's demonstrate the good old freezing ability of this. That's for the freezing. What else do... Oh, the good old bleed. I don't think I will manage to bleed him. Oh, maybe I will actually. Bleed this guy before I kill him. But the amount of bleed on this thing is just insane. The 10H. I mean, seriously, it's just so broken. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this. I will now probably add a few cop moments, and I will also share with you the slider of this beauty. Look at this beautiful demonic succubus design. I think it fits pretty well with the armor. All right. Hey! See you later. Idiot.